Okay, in this video, I'm going to start talking about education. I realize that there's so much going on in this area that it's going to take a few videos to actually pull this off. So that's going to be the start of this little mini series, but I'm going to try and organize this well and do some justice to it. But there's several big things going on in education that some people are aware of, other people are not aware of, and there's some intricacies that take some time to explain. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background. I've been to community college, been to state college, and been to number one school college. I don't need to specify names and all that, but I've done that. I've done undergraduate, I've done graduate work, I've published, I've taken courses in multiple engineering, I've taken some business, all sorts of things. So I have a pretty wide view of this university space, been around for a bit. Seen a lot of different schools, seen a lot of different places, seen a lot of different programs. So, what's going on? So, what typically happens with a with a student or a prospective a college student is they go through high school, and in high school, they figure out kind of what do you want to do, and what are your dreams, and you go to pick some college, and you go off to college, or you go to community college, and I would say go to community college, but that's maybe another video. It's a waste of money otherwise. Go to community college or go to some school, some university, and you end up paying thousands, tens of thousands a year, depending on where you go. And the first couple years are, to be honest with you, they're soft, they're easy, they're just standard information. They're information that you really shouldn't be paying what you're paying for. Because that information is such a commodity item. So you learn writing, and you learn math, and you learn reading, and you learn economics and history and psychology, and you pick your electives, and that's all commodity information. And what I mean by that is all that information is online, all of it. I mean, all information is online, even at the graduate level, but there's certain thinking processes and certain experiences that become more important in graduate school. But as an undergraduate, you're just learning commodity information. You're learning the basics. I mean, really, honestly. And so what people are paying for that is ridiculous compared to what they're getting. And so that's one of the big issues. The other issue is that students are learning things that aren't really relevant because when you go to school, I mean, your primary objective is, I want a job on the other side. Or maybe you're more idealistic and you say, I want to chase my dreams and shit like that. That's fine. That's really, good. Chase your dreams. But you need to be adding value when you do that. So when you go to school and you get a 4-year degree, you need to make sure you pick a hard program. Pick the hardest program that you can muster if you really insist on going to college, because that's where you're going to instill the most value. Now, if you pick the easiest, which is what most people do, they don't really know what they want to do. They try this, and they just kind of meander a little bit. Maybe mom and dad are paying for it, or maybe you took out a loan and you'll just think you're going to end up paying it down the road. That's a very dangerous place to be in, because at the end of the day, the market doesn't care about what you want and what you don't want and what your daddy's paying. What it cares about is whether you invested properly, whether you invested your time and your energy and your money properly, and that you get a return on your investment after that. Okay? And that might sound cold and hard, but the world is cold and hard in that way. It's a numbers game. Okay? So you got to make sure that whatever you're going into, you make sure you think about it strategically. But to be frank, when you're 18 starting college, you don't really even have the skill set to do that analysis, and you really don't have the perception and the perspective to look 4 years down the road, to look at the corporate market, the industrial market, the job market, and to filter it out and say, well, what am I actually going to be doing? Because you just don't understand at that point. And so you either need a really good mentor, a really good counselor, and very, very few of those, mind you, because there's so much breadth. Or you need really good parents who actually do see the playing field and listen a little bit if they've been around the block. So that's what happens, and what you're seeing now is that a lot of people are getting degrees and they're not having jobs, and you'll see that more and more and more. And so degrees are just flooding the market. You actually have lots of people in China and in India and all these other countries in Europe. Everyone's getting degrees. There's all these degrees all over the world. right? And so it becomes a highly competitive marketplace because everyone's got a degree, big deal. But degrees are not all created the same. So some degrees are worthless, and I mean that, and they're actually probably even less. I mean, the amount you paid in to what you got, you're in a negative. You're in the negative zone. That was a bad investment. And there are degrees that are really good. And since I'm very much biased, I think the highly technical ones are the ones that are very good. The ones that are very difficult to achieve, that weeds out a lot of the other, degrees, or the competition, I should say, because there are not very many who get these technical degrees that are difficult because they're difficult. People don't want to do what's hard, and they should. They should do what's hard. And so those are safer degrees. Now, with all of that said, even with the top-end degrees, you're still getting ripped off. So let me explain how it works. So when you go to school, you sit into a lecture, right? You sit and you watch some guy or some lady talk up there for a bit. You get your textbook, you get some homework assignments, and you after lecture you go study your book. You do the homework, you get some study groups together, you sit at in the library. And when you're at home, you Google around online, and then you come back the next week and you turn in your assignment. So what you actually paid for in that week was about an hour per 3 days, maybe, so 3 hours a week of lecture. That's what you paid for. So you pay for that for 10 weeks in a term system. So that's the 30 hours. So 30 hours, that's less than a 1 work week, right? People normally work 40 hours, so you're paying for about 30 hours of lecture time. And I'm not counting the infrastructure around that because I don't think that's as valuable as people think. I don't think but that's, I'll not get on that tangent. But so that's what you're paying for a head count time, more or less. Assuming that, there's not this other grading on the back end and all this, but anyway, that interaction time. And so you pay per term, thousands, tens of thousands, maybe 10,000-ish. So at, a community college is probably in the thousands per term. In the high-end private universities, it's going to cost you somewhere around 10K, 15K per term. And so you're paying for that for less than a week's worth of work by your professor. Now, again, you have the infrastructure around that, but what I'm going to tell you now is you don't actually need that infrastructure, which is why I think education is going to change dramatically in the next decade, probably much sooner, and it's already starting to change. Most of those lectures that you receive can actually be found online, okay? And the textbooks that you buy, the older versions are just as good. So instead of paying $150 at the bookstore, you could pay $10 on half.com and get a couple editions back and do that. You could also go online and figure out what the curriculum is for, say, a degree or a class, and you can actually back all that out and organize your own system that is an exact model of a university degree, and just do it on your own time. Do it while you're working a job, but you have to be systematic and you have to be disciplined about it. So that's actually what I used to do, is I would branch into different areas that weren't engineering, business or whatever, or strategy or economics or whatever that may be. I would go look at the courses required to complete that degree, right? And that's all in the catalogs for every university. You can look at that. And then what you go into is you look at that class website or whatever, and you figure out what they're actually teaching, but more importantly, what textbook they're using. Then what you do is you go on to half.com, you get the old version of the textbook, it costs you $10, and you just read through that. And so now you've completed that class more or less. You actually have exposure to those ideas in that class, and you didn't have to pay, thousands for that class. And the thing is that is possible now with the internet and with what's online and with discipline and that willingness. You can do that. But people are still paying for the degrees. And the reason they're paying for the degrees is it's a branding thing. It's a marketing thing. If I get a degree from Stanford or MIT, people don't question too much. They're like, he went to Stanford, he went to MIT. He's been vetted. He's probably pretty good. They pushed him pretty hard. But if you get a degree from somewhere else that's less prestigious, maybe you have to, have a little bit more internships or a little bit more on your resume. Or if you don't get a degree, you have to demonstrate something. You need to volunteer for things. You need to produce code. You need to produce this website. You need to produce this business. You need to produce something like a big project that says, look, I figured this stuff out. Okay? And that's where I think things are going. And you see a lot of that with programmers nowadays. They don't need to go to college. They really don't. They need to demonstrate that they can figure things out. That's what they need to do. Now, with all of that said, there is a good amount of value to the structure that a university program provides. It gives you a different perspective, and that is good. But it's not worth what you're paying now. And what you're paying now is a function of actually poor monetary policy and central planning. That's why I said this will take a lot longer to explain what's going on. But the ability for everybody to get loans and to increase the money supply and locally create inflation in the education system is a massive problem. Is really a big reason for why everything's so expensive. But I'll explain that more in another video. But the big idea is that you can actually get a university degree without the official piece of paper that you keep in the cardboard box in your closet. You can actually get that same experience if you go and you back it out. So what that means is go do what I said. Go look at some program that you want to do, some degree that you want at a top university. Go actually write out all the courses that are required. Go find all the textbooks that are required, and go get as many syllabus and as many assignments and homeworks that you can get, and just start going through that. And you'll see that you can learn without sitting in a classroom and paying tens of thousands of dollars. But if you do that, and you do take the self-learning approach, you need to make sure that you're disciplined, that you take on big projects, and that you're able to demonstrate that you can actually do something in the real world. So that was a little bit scattered, but and this is actually a pretty long video. But it'll probably be 2 or 3 more videos on this because there are some other really big topics to think about. So with that, I'll see you next week.